this week's edition of the DC Life. I'm your host, Sal Mika. I got my co-host, Micah Frankel, and we got a special guest from 610, the sports animal. James Lindenmuth is in the house with us. We're doing a roundtable. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the invite.
And it's going to be a special edition. This is the last week of 2015. We're moving into 2016, and Micah, how are you feeling after Christmas?
I'm happy. It's been a big year. I actually went back, looked over. I think locally I've been in about 25 fights this year, so it's just been a crazy busy year, and can't wait to see how busy 2016 is. Like we already talked about, January, February, local has about 6 events going on already, so it's been a busy year, and I can't wait for another one.
Well, let's jump into it. James, what fight locally in 2015 stood out to you?
Well, I mean, there's hundreds of them. Micah mentioned that he had seen 25 fights in the last year. If you're a regular 610 listener at all, you know that I have about 1,700 children, and I saw 25 fights just on Christmas. So, I mean, that none of those are going to be top. Some of the Holmes fights, I think, were some of the better ones that I saw. I'm very, very impressed with Brandon Holmes. I think that's a name that we're going to be talking about, for quite some time when it comes to as far as local boxing goes. Andres Quintana, although that's not boxing, but Andres Quintana has been very, very impressive this year. Those are the two names locally that just kind of jump to the forefront.
In your mind, and Micah?
Okay, as far as boxing goes, the 2 best fights I think I really saw this year, there was Patrick Holmes Jr. and Gene Perez. That fight way exceeded expectations. That was a tremendous back-and-forth war. And then also was the 2 battles between Tony Valdez and Gilberto Mendoza from California. They really beat the heck out of each other for about 20 rounds this year. Back and forth in both fights, close decisions. On the MMA side, Jose Verdugo versus Andres Quintana. Not many people got to see that down in Roswell, Mayhem, but that was a high-caliber MMA fight. And then the Jackson Series main events this year, really having the Donald Sanchez and Nick Rhodes fight, and also the, I'm losing my track here, Nick Urso and Josh Montoya fight. Top MMA fights of the year, those 3 fights out here locally.
And you mentioned the Perez fight with Pat Holmes Jr., and that was, not only was Perez, a little bit longer in the tooth than obviously Pat Holmes Jr. is, but he also had a baby on the way at the time. I don't know if most people knew that. He had a baby on the way. So, I mean, his focus, I don't know that it was 100% in that fight, but that dude's a warrior.
And then
Absolute
up a weight class,
warrior.
I believe that fight was.
Exactly.
It was in the 30s. He fights in the 20s usually.
Right.
So.
He was definitely the smaller opponent, but absolutely a good, an amazing fight.
Well, that was probably the surprise fight because everybody didn't. I mean, let's be honest. You have the cards stacked against you. In the fact of you're going up to this guy's hometown, you're
the promoter's his dad.
The promoter's his father. You're moving up a weight class. You're about a whole foot shorter than this professional boxer. You're more of an MMA fighter, which I just had a conversation with one of the MMA fighters, and they say it's silly to have these 2 sports touching, and people assume that they're the exact same thing, and they're totally different. And I've heard that from a lot of MMA fighters. When they get in there with a pure boxer, they're lost. They don't even know. These guys cut angles so quickly on them that they don't even see the punches coming half the time.
Well, and that's... I understand where some of the MMA fighters are coming from when they say something like that, but to say it's silly, I think, is somewhat disrespectful. Because I mean, look at what Holly's done. Obviously, that's going to be your first example. But if you go back years and years ago, Keith Jardine and Diego Sanchez, some local guys, were able to almost earn a living, doing some boxing stuff on the side so that they could continue to train when the MMA money wasn't necessarily there.
And I guess what he meant by silly, let me clarify that, is to compare the 2 and say that they're hand in hand.
It's apples and oranges.
Yeah,
no, you're absolutely
totally
right.
different
absolutely
sports
right.
is what I meant by that. And when people say, if you do one, you could do the other. No, they're 2 totally different sports, totally different angle cuts. And the way he explained it is we use our hands and our striking to set up the takedown or stop
kick,
takedown,
right.
or we're always thinking 3 or 4 moves ahead versus that one punch, with that one strike. Where in boxing, you're setting up just your hands, and your angles and your cuts and everything else.
Well,
So,
and I think the perfect example would be when we've seen MMA fighters go and have their first experience with boxing. I've seen it personally where you've got a guy that's an MMA traditionalist, and he's in there and he's throwing his hands, and you'll see him almost lift a leg or a knee and then have to check himself and pull it back down. So no, they are apples and oranges.
Oh yeah. The fight that I'd say that was a surprise fight for me of 2015.
Well, just talking about Gene, I think it's more surprising that he's the guy that I'd say mainly jumps back and forth between the two sports out here. I don't know about being most successful at it, but he is the guy that we see box MMA every other weekend. He switches it up, and that's a great credit to him hanging in there with those boxers, because we've seen other people that we thought were MMA strikers go into a boxing ring and get put down right away. Talking about surprises, though, I still have Manuel Eastman knocking out Cody East as the biggest boxing surprise I saw all year.
Would that be a surprise or an upset?
Both.
Both. Either way, did not see that coming. I didn't even know his punches could touch that high.
Yeah, that was shocking to see, because everybody, I mean, even a working commission and whatnot out there, you see these guys, and styles make fights. It doesn't matter what the guy looks like. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. And it was the biggest upset, because nobody in their right mind. They're lying if they. I think the only one that thought that he was going to win that night was Manuel.
Yeah.
And maybe his family that was there watching him. And that was.
I don't know that his family even had high expectations.
Maybe not. Maybe they were saying, "Hey, look, it's payday. We'll do it." Because there's guys that do. Some of them need it. Some of them honestly need the money. I've been a promoter. I've been a guy that actually matchmakes. And trust me, some of these guys just need the paycheck.
Well, look at a Richard Villa, a local phenom. He's retired now, 15 times, I think? Yeah. And then just about 6 months later, he's right back in there. So, yeah, I mean, for a lot of these guys, it is a way to, to support their family. I mean, I know, Ox Wheeler, took some fights that he maybe necessarily wouldn't have jumped on, but, he was supporting his family. So.
Yeah. They cover school, they cover payments, they cover everything. Hey, those are fights that you're not going to refuse.
Right. Absolutely.
They dangle that carrot in front of you, so to speak. Let's go ahead and talk about Fighter of the Year in mixed martial arts. Let's do the males first and then the females second. Micah, you're up.
Are we going locally or nationally?
We'll go. Let's stay local for now.
All right, let's stay local. I had 2 candidates up there for the male side of it, and it's going to be Dorian Dixon and Steven Cervantes. Both went 4-0 this year. Great win. Cervantes coming off of beating Sean Bunch. And how big of a win is that? The last guy to beat Sean Bunch, Darian Caldwell, is now main eventing a Bellator against Joe Warren looking at a title shot. So it's a big win for Steven. And then Dorian just submitting and knocking out guys like Javier Palacios and John Rosama. Some of the most incredible performances I saw live all year out of Dorian.
Yeah.
Well, and with Dorian, I think what's even more impressive is that you'll see him in a fight, and then if there's a grapple fest the next weekend, you see him out there as well. He's right back out there, doing his thing. For me, it's Andres, though. It's Andres Quintana, and I've got a soft spot for the guy just because he's one of the most well-mannered and just most respectful fighters that I've met in a very long time. So for me, it's Andres Quintana.
And I would have to agree with half of what you said, with Dorian Dixon, all the way around. I mean, this guy, one of the nicest kids ever, and I call him a kid because he's in his 20s.
Because we're old.
And we're old. Yeah. Believe it or not, we're old. I know that we're getting up there more and more. But yeah, I mean, Dorian Dixon, he was the underdog in every single fight that they put him in. When they matched him up to lose. And that's the honest truth. You know who's the A side and the B side, even if they try and say, oh no, he's not. And to come out and just go on a tear. Inside that cage, he is one mean kid.
And it was his knockout power. That was something, we knew he was a great technician with his martial arts background, but the power, hurting guys like Rosamund, hurting Palacio, guys that were bigger guys. And also, it's just been a mentality change in Dorian. I've been interviewing him for years, and he is focused. He's a little more selfish now and actually making this a career and becoming a world champion. All that has played into him becoming a killer.
The only thing that I wish, I'm hearing that he's going to the police academy. And I think that's going to hurt his MMA career because the focus will have to change. It's going to have to. It's not a choice. I kind of wish he would hold back on that. I know selfishly, because you're on that kind of tear, you can possibly make it to the big show. You're young enough. You seem to just be growing into your man strength. And selfishly, I know I shouldn't say this, but I want to see him continue. And I know once he does make the real transition into the police academy, which is fantastic, an awesome career, nothing to look down on.
We need more good cops, so
yeah,
I think that's...
And he'll be a fantastic police officer, I believe. But once that does happen, I don't care what he says, what he does. He could say he's staying training. That's going to take 100% focus.
Well, to transition from, say, MMA and boxing to other sports, if you look at a guy in Pat Tillman, from the Arizona Cardinals, so he walked away from a multi-million-dollar, NFL contract to go serve, in the armed forces. And if that's his passion and that's his, really what he wants to do, then more power to him. And if you look at a guy at Chris Luttrell, obviously has been, serving our community for, dozens and dozens of years. He's probably not going to dissuade Dorian if he were to ask for advice to serve the community.
For sure. And I'm happy for him. I'm just selfishly looking at it because he's on a tear right now, and he's the hottest thing out in New Mexico. I really believe that. And I think he can make a run where he can go to either a Bellator, a ONE FC, or even a UFC.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's possible. With the amount of shows the UFC is doing, they're going to need fighters, and good fighters, and young fighters. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking for these old heads anymore. I don't care what they say. They're not. They want the young guys.
There's a bit of a changing of the guard.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
4 straight wins this year. He's exactly the kind of talent that RFA, Legacy, these, up-and-coming promotions, they're looking for these guys, so we stop seeing these fights of guys with, 10 and 13 lost records, making it big.
For sure. Let's go ahead and move to the female mixed martial artist of the year.
Well, female mixed martial artist of the year.
Locally,
there were 2 names. They're both from Fit and HB on the professional side that I threw out there. Brenda Gonzalez Means went 2-0 this year, won 2 decisions, and claimed a Sugar Creek bantamweight title. And then also Nico Montano, she made her pro debut, 1 win, a TKO with that one, but also had an amateur fight, so she went 2-0. Really wasn't much local women's action this year, which was kind of sad on the pro level. They were the 2 busiest. I'd have to give it to Brenda, though, winning that title.
I'm right there with you. I didn't see a whole lot of local action, even from doing the cage side stuff, doing the ring announcing. I didn't see a whole lot of female action, so I wouldn't want to throw a name out there just because there wasn't. And that's kind of sad, and that's something that we need to work on in 2016, that, we need to have more female action. You've noticed what the UFC has done is there's a whole lot more female fights, not just headlining, but co-mains, and throughout the undercard. And that's something that we need to take notice to and do a better job of locally, of having, those female fighters on these cards.
Well, and even there was that lack of action. There were, on the amateur side, even a couple girls that were making their names this year. Jasana Olis went 2-0. A TKO up in Farmington. She had a big win on the amateur side. And Jamie Hinshaw from Fit and HB, she went 3-1. 3 submission wins in King of the Cage, and then a week's notice lost by unanimous decision up for RFA in Minnesota. So there's a few, and we wish there was more, but there are some stars in the making.
Jamie has a soft spot on my heart because back in the day, she came in to another fight shop that I was working at, and she was buying.
There's
gear.
Another fight shop?
There was.
I thought there was only one.
There is
the
only
fight
one.
shop, New Mexico.
Fight shop, New Mexico.
Right,
we're recording live from the fight shop, New Mexico, in
thought.
Albuquerque. But years ago, she came in, a couple years ago, I should say, and she was buying gear for her. I believe it's her daughter, and they were going to try out Fit. this girl didn't look like she had any kind of desire to be in there. Nothing, the daughter wanted to be in it. Little girl went in, did everything. Well, Arlene decided to do women classes. Women get to train for free at the time because of domestic violence and stuff happening. She started taking the classes. They started coming in, buying gear and whatnot. And to see her grow from that person and transition to where she's at now, it's amazing to see the transition. I wish people would see that behind the
progression,
scenes. A progression of somebody changing from just an ordinary person into a true fighter, true athlete, and the transformation that they've done. I can't wait to see her inside the Invicta cage if that's the way they go. I know Invicta's been a little bit rough lately because they're still trying to figure out their scheduling and whatnot, but I think that's a place for any female to go to rotate up to the UFC.
Well, and I mean, if you were to do like your top 5 women that you would never ever want to mess with, I mean, Arlene's going to be at the top of my list. I know that much. So if you're female and you want to learn, that's where you need to be. I ain't messing with that lady.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she is rough and tough, and I hear she puts it even on the guys.
Oh, yeah. I'd rather mix it up with Tom personally. Yeah. At least I could maybe like throw something.
Those are toss-ups, man. Those are 2 toss-ups. Those 2 tough people, and they produce. It's funny because I don't know if I talked about it before on the show, but and I know I'm going off subject a little bit, but Fit reminded me. I went in there a while back, and Fit reminded me of the way Jackson's used to feel.
Back when it was off of San Mateo.
Back when it was off of, they all look hungry.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They all have that.
No, it's like a Rocky movie.
Yeah,
it's like a Rocky
exactly
movie.
What I was gonna say, man. They don't. There's no flash. There's no. From the kids all the way up to the top.
Yeah.
You see it. You see the hunger in each and every one of those people in there. And if you don't have it, they're gonna weed you out real fast. And,
oh yeah.
And that's the way it used to be at Jackson's. Is you'd see these pros come in at night and do a second, third workout with these young, hungry amateurs in the evening at Jackson.
Yeah.
And you'd see the hunger, like, build in these younger fighters at the time, the amateurs. And I don't know if you see that anymore just because now it's a split gym. And
guys like Thomas Schulte and Dan Christensen and stuff like that, I mean, that's where you meet the most humble person that you could ever meet. But then the minute that cage door shut, you saw that work that they put in and that aggression, that passion.
Get on the mats with them.
Yeah.
And
I'm not doing that.
Totally different animal, But that it's an interesting thing that's
a tough atmosphere.
There. Yeah.
You have to be tough even just to sit in there for battlegrounds. I mean, during the summer you go down there, it gets 120 degrees just watching the fights. So they're breeding the toughness. It's that old school feeling, that mentality, the blood, the sweat, the tears, and it's not fancy. There's a ring, there's mats, there's bags, and they are a hardcore workout.
And the kids program they have there at Fit is just phenomenal. I mean, you mentioned the ladies program, but the kids program is where I really think they're giving back to the community. And one of the best quotes that I've ever heard, and it came from a boxing guy, but it equates to all combat sports, in my opinion. He said the more blood that's spilled in the gym, the less it's spilled on the street.
Yeah.
So, if these kids are in there and they're learning to handle their aggression and to use it positively, then maybe we see a different, kind of climate in the community as well.
For sure. Well, you don't want to be out there fighting in the streets.
Not anymore.
After you're in the gym and you're training and doing everything, you're dead tired. You want to go home, relax, heal, be ready to recover and train the next day.
Well, and you also know that if somebody says something to you that is disrespectful, you can turn your head.
Yeah.
You can walk. You can walk away because it doesn't matter. You know who you are. Yeah. You know what you're worth.
Absolutely.
As we were talking about all these MMA fighters, it dawned on me too. We skipped over the amateur males, and then a couple of those that I want to throw out too this year that had some great performances. Dominic Yara's 2-0 on his pro young amateur rise. Austin Lewis, I believe, is 2-0, King of the Cage, and he also went up to Colorado and took a fight. Javier Cepeda, I believe, went 2-0 this year, and Hunter Tower went 2-0, and also the most active guy of the amateurs we had on here before, Jesse Tafoya, 4-1. That guy was just fighting every time he could.
Jess Tafoya is my pick.
He'd be my pick. I had to throw up other people there. Jess blew everyone away with how active he was. 5 fights, ridiculous for an amateur.
To me, it's mind-blowing that they keep trying to change change him and have him. It caught my attention to me when he said they want me to finish fights with my hands before I turn pro. Why? Why change him? If he can set up his using his hands or kicking and abilities and then get that takedown and sub you out, why? What is the point of that? If you keep winning and you're 4-0, 5-1, you know, it to me, if your skill set allows you to dictate where the fight goes, why are you so hungry for them to use his hands? And Chance getting knocked out, Chance taking a beating. Look at him in his last couple fights. I mean, he's gotten hit a lot more than what he should have. He could have finished these guys off a lot quicker, but because they're putting that added pressure of saying, hey, finish him, finish this fight with your hands, and we'll move you up to pro. That's ridiculous.
Well, and you know what scares me is that it's, and I know we're way jumping the gun on this, but it reminds me of Diego. You know, Diego's early success in his career was based on, you know, his ground game, his ground and pound, and then he had a couple of knockouts, and seemingly, and I love him to death, but seemingly transitioned himself into what he thought was a striker, and he struggled. You know, he truly has struggled, and that if you're winning, like if it ain't broke,
why are you trying to
don't fix it? You know, I'm like, don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, exactly.
So again, I know that's a big jump, but still, it scares me.
No, it's not
with a fighter like
because
that.
you think about it, you're hitting it right on the head. I mean, he can transition to that potential downfall.
The next Jackson's MMA series event, Jesse's back on the amateur card. Shocking to me as to most. Last 3 fights he's had each time, I'm like, well, when are they turning you pro? And he's showing off his hands, his knees, his kicks more and more each fight. So it's not that he doesn't look like a striker anymore.
But why risk and put that added pressure of saying, hey, I got to stand up. I got to stand up. I got to trade. I got to trade. I got to trade. Boom. You get caught.
You're not getting fight bonuses.
No.
You're not getting a knockout of the night. You're not, you know.
Get in there, finish the fight, win.
You don't get paid by the hour.
Get out. And if you're already training at the main gym, the pro gym with all the pros, and you have pros that are in the UFC saying, watch out for this kid. They're saying that because he's putting a beating on them inside the gym themselves as well.
Yeah.
They're not just saying it to hype him up. They're saying it because it's happening. So that's my only thing with him. As far as my pick for female fighter locally, it will have to go to Brenda Gonzalez for mixed martial arts. I mean, she won the title. She was the busiest of the women here locally. Close second, I would say, would probably be Jody Escobar, being that she fought for Invicta one time, won, and then she won that boxing title in Santa Fe. So that was 2 fights for her.
And serving our community at the same time as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know.
I was going to have to say, if anybody was, you know, New Mexico Female Boxer of the Year, we'd have to give it to Jody. She bring home a title.
Yeah. And I guess we can actually go ahead and transition over to boxing. Female boxer, we are all in agreement. It's Jody.
It's Jody. There was a lack of female boxing action here this year.
Sure.
Well, and that's again something that we need to, as you know, the fight community need to correct.
And coming up on the legacy promotion, I guess there's a female gonna be competing. I don't know off the top of my head who she is. She's from Espanola area. Yeah. So
we know tough.
So you know, she's gonna be tough. She's gonna be grinding.
Probably got a little hood in her.
Possibly. Hey, you said that. I didn't. You know, if you know anything about Monica Lovato, I mean, she's from Espanola. So if she's probably training with her, she's going to be tough, rugged, and she's going to get in there and be a scrapper. So I'm excited about that coming up in February at Camel Rock Casino, I believe.
Camel Rock Casino.
Exciting times.
Pro boxer, male.
Male pro boxer of the year locally, hands down, easy. Brian Mendoza, 8-0 and like 6 knockouts or something. Just 8-0 in a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he wants to double that number now. He wants one fight. Like, he's trying to fight back to back to back as long as he can.
Well, and he's such a class act too.
Yes.
You know, we had an opportunity to chat with him the other day, Micah and I and Jorge Hernandez, and the kid couldn't be more humble. You know, and as you mentioned, we say kid because we're old now, but you know, he said, you know, his coaches would ask him to take time off, say, hey, please take a week, take 2 weeks. And 3 days later, he's just got that itch. Like, he's got to get back into the gym. And that's really what embodies New Mexico fighters, whether it be MMA or boxing. I think it's just that there's just that desire just to get back in there. Like if as long as you're healthy, why aren't I training? I don't want to sit here on my couch. I don't want to, do this. I want to get back into the gym. That's what they're passionate about. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much not a discussion, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, no, I pick him as well as the New Mexico pro boxer. Where does he go from here, though? I mean, does he continually fight once, twice a month, or should he be hitting television pretty soon?
From watching PBC a couple times, and I know he's in a coma now, but Pritchard Colon, the way they were bringing him up and the way they were talking about him, they were feeding guys to this kid at the beginning, and they were really waiting till about 18-0, it sounds like, in boxing. So I'm figuring Brian's going to be fighting once a month for the next 6 months, and somewhere towards the latter half of the year, he'll probably have to slow it down because someone's going to bring him a big contract or a title fight, and that's when he'll have to, really settle in and get ready for a 10-rounder and a title fight and study an opponent.
Well, and he said 20. What was the number that he had mentioned?
That's
He said
his magic
18.
number?
He said 18 was the bare minimum,
18
but
was
he
this
said
year.
20 is what he would like. He wants to get to 20-0 amateur before he starts looking. I think I don't see that happening, to be perfectly honest. I think that a couple more wins, there's going to be something, a piece of paper or a contract that's put in front of him that it's going to be, not to use the Godfather, but it's something you just don't refuse.
Sure.
It's going to be a contract that I don't think he can walk away from. I love the fact that he wants to do that. He wants to learn and wants to grow. I just think that if you have an opportunity like that in front of you, at his age, he's very, very young. He's got time. But if ESPN Friday Night Fights shows up or if Showbox shows up, you're going to tell him no?
Yeah, for sure. And it's surprising to me that, and who knows, maybe Oscar does have his eye on him. Being that Fidel just re-upped with Golden Boy, he's in Fidel's camp. They're part of the same team. He's pretty. And I'm not meaning that in any which way. He's a good-looking guy. He's
marketable.
He's well-spoken.
Yeah,
he can be exactly what De La Hoya was when De La Hoya was there singing himself to the ring. Hey, this guy can't sing. But women flock to him. Women
He's the
flock
Elvis
to
of
him.
boxing.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
And he can fight. And this kid is he reminds me of Oscar in the sense of you're that pretty, you're that marketable, that smile comes out.
But crazy humble and he'll blush and the camera. Oh yeah, no, I got you.
It's a boxing promoter's dream to have that kind of kid. And if he I don't know if he's dual language, but if he is,
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, it's over.
Yeah.
He could go anywhere in
I hear you.
this and be such a huge star.
Talking about stars, just look at right now the landscape in New Mexico boxing. I mean, it was kind of quiet.
It's covered in snow.
Everything is covered in
Landscape,
snow
yes.
right now. We the day after tomorrow in Clovis and everything, and you can't leave Albuquerque to go to Texas right now. You're stuck here.
10-foot snowdrifts in Lee County. Crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Back to my point, though. Look at all these young guys coming up. I mean, the Holmes brothers, Angelo Leo, Brian Mendoza, Fidel's getting back on it. Alex Holguin is on a good winning streak. I mean, there's a lot of prospects out here right now.
Yeah, and it seems like there's going to be a lot of boxing coming up. I mean, we just finished out the year with the Chavez promotion doing their show. Then starting in January, you have the Holmes boxing promotion at Buffalo Thunder. In February, you have the Legacy promotion, IMI Group or
IMI Legacy Promotions.
They're going to be doing their show at Camel
Alphabet
Rock.
Soup.
Yeah.
And some rumbling that Fresquez Promotions may actually throw an event again.
I'm hearing they're going to come back in March and do either a boxing or MMA or even a hybrid show. I'm hearing as well that might take place. I've always wanted to do a hybrid show. I think that's a dream. I don't understand.
Can we have
why.
boxing in a cage?
No, but you put them in a ring. Have you ever seen MMA in a ring?
Yeah,
Live.
and for my own
Live.
safety, I'm kind of scared. No, not live, actually. I'm not live.
Live is amazing. That is because in Roswell they used to do it. This guy Frankie Martinez, he used to be one of the promoters out there. And there's Jojo Martinez. They're not. I don't think they're related. But Frankie Martinez, he would do a show.
They have them at the fairgrounds, was it?
It was yeah. Inside the Armory Fairgrounds area.
That's right.
So, but he used to put a ring in there, and it is the best view anywhere in that place is the best seat ever.
And if you got VIP, they put really good chips and salsa on the
Yes,
table too.
yes.
I remember.
Yes,
I remember,
yes, he
because I
did.
saw Richard Villa fight there one time. Way back in the day.
Andres has fought there.
Yeah.
Richard. I mean, you name it. These guys have come up and have fought there. Anselmo Martinez from West Texas
Yeah.
is, these guys are old dudes, and they were fighting back in the day, and they'd come in full blast, and they'd fight there. But it's an awesome experience. It would be neat to see boxing, a couple professional boxing matches, and 3 boxing matches, 4 MMA fights. Why not?
Well, and when you say hybrid, as long as it's not like, because some of the events that I've been to where it's like there's MMA and then there's like the gi, like a grappling. I don't know that it worked. I don't know, and maybe it could be done better.
Sure.
But I don't know that, because I think a lot of the fans that come to these fights are looking for the striking aspect of it, and that's unfortunate because they're missing out on such a huge portion of what is attractive, about the sport.
I like grappling, and I've never been so excited as when we saw Josh Lanier and Quentin Morales choking the heck out of each other in front of each other, and I got to be right there. I can understand for how the people behind us, because it was on the ground, it could be a little hard in too big of a venue, but watching something that high caliber live and jiu-jitsu in a raw form like that was amazing.
No, I dig it, but again, if you're trying to meet that bottom line,
it's an acquired taste. Yeah. I'm sure of it and stuff like that. And if you don't understand the ground game, why are they hugging each other on the floor?
No, they're just rolling around.
No, they're not. They're tightening up. They're moving position. You have no idea what they're doing. Let's go ahead and move on to, since we were talking about boxing, the biggest upset. We kind of covered it. What was going through your head that night?
Going through my mind that night was that Cody had a longer reach, a bigger advantage. It wasn't that he was a novice in boxing. I believe he went in 3-0 or 4-0 into that fight with some knockouts. Eastman had been knocked out before. It seemed to be simple boxing math and overhand right out of nowhere. And East was out after he got hit the first time, got hit a couple more times. That was a huge shock.
Yeah, and we're talking about the Manuel Eastman Cody East fight. Boxing match, and the backstory is Cody East was the legacy heavyweight champion at the time.
Yeah,
coming in, like you mentioned, he had boxing background. They were already talking 4-0, 5-0, and you see the state of heavyweight boxing in professional boxing, anyways. That it's not very good. Look who the champion is.
Tyson Fury.
Oh my gosh, that was one of the worst fights ever. But, it's wide open. If this guy really does have the hand skills to knock people out, he can transition and become a champion pretty quickly. So that was the chatter. That was the chatter is, hey, if he could really build and become, maybe we'll leave MMA behind. Because they're having a rough go at it, getting into knocking on these top 2 promotions within Bellator and the UFC. So maybe we'll leave it behind and we'll go to boxing room. That was the talk at that moment. And as he walked in...
Pretty sure that got ended.
Yeah.
He didn't look right the minute he walked into that ring.
You saw... was it overconfidence?
I was worried the minute he walked by me. The media table I was at was right next to the set of stairs where he walked up. And when he looked at me when he was walking up, I could tell that's not the guy that I had interviewed and not the guy I had seen spar leading up to that. And
so what was going on? What?
It looked like he was just having one of those off nights, and then there was something later that he was puking, not making an excuse. He never said this, but I heard he might have had a stomach ailment, and he just didn't look like he was into it. I don't know if there was more playing into it, but it just didn't look like the same guy, and he paid for it.
Well, and that's, that happens. Everybody's going to have a bad day at the office, and you mentioned the state of heavyweight boxing, Sal, and that's, if you look at Tyson Fury, obviously, and you look at that fight with Klitschko, it's kind of sad. Really, the state of where heavyweight boxing was. I mean, if you remember when we were kids growing up, if you were the heavyweight boxing champion of the world, you were the baddest man on the planet.
Yep, Mike Tyson.
Exactly. Will Smith had rap songs about Mike Tyson. That's how big that guy was.
And let's make this clear: the Fresh Prince was the top tier rapper at the time.
Of course he was.
So I mean, I know these kids.
Parents just don't understand.
These kids will be like, well, Will Smith, the actor?
he's-
You mean Jaden's dad?
Yeah.
Willow's dad. I whip my hair back and forth. He actually can sing. Yes.
Well, and he had
Just
a
the
pretty
two
good
of us.
he had a pretty good DJ, to back him up. But no, I mean it is sad, and it's sad that he can't make his way into some of these organizations MMA wise, and that he felt that boxing was the venue that he had to go to, and I don't think this is the end of that venture. I think everybody has a bad day. Anybody can get caught. If you said when you personally saw him that he didn't look like he was feeling it, then maybe he comes back and rattles off 4 or 5 wins and goes and does it anyway. Who knows?
And he went back to MMA, correct?
He went back to MMA. He defended his legacy title, knocking out Renati Ko in a fight where he got caught, survived, got to the second round, got the TKO, and then also a first-round win over Roy Broughton in global knockouts. And we know in March, I believe, he's scheduled to be in a 4-man, one-night heavyweight tournament for global knockouts. That would make him a 3-time regional promotional champion.
So let's go ahead and move on. Let's do the New Mexico professional who's in the UFC, we'll say Bellator Fighter of the Year.
Who's made the biggest noise locally?
Yep.
That's in one of those big promotions.
Professionally, that's in the big.
Are we going male and female?
We'll go male and female.
Oh, okay. All right,
drum roll.
okay.
I know where
Let's
this
go
is
male
going.
and female.
Oh, okay. Well,
Let's start with female.
all right, female, Holly Holm. All right, let's take the easy one and just get it out there, guys. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say Holly easily. It could have not been her, just as easy though, if she would have lost. And but yeah, Holly, hands down. I mean that was the easiest pick. What was going through your head, James, when this fight occurred?
Well, and I'll fast forward to after the fight. Everybody, 1017, 610, every caller that called in was like, I knew she was going to win.
Bullshit.
I knew she was going to win.
Bullshit.
Right. But I was, the Thursday before, on my radio segment, I said, Holly's going to win, and she's going to win by knockout. And I think, in fact, I don't remember, I think it was Michael Carlisle from 610. He was like, James, you need to have a Snickers. He's like, because you say silly things when you're hungry. And I was like, I'm telling you. Now, did I see Holly dominating the way that she did? Absolutely not. Anybody that tells you that they did is just outside their mind. But I did, I looked at the fight, and I have a respect for Holly that I've seen her box many, many times.
Sure.
I thought she presented a lot of problems for Ronda, and I predicted the knockout. So that while I was watching the fight, the minute it went to the ground, I got very, very nervous. And I think everybody did. I think everybody kind of was like, and then Holly was able to, but we have to understand that she's got, an amazing ground game as well. I think that's what a lot of people didn't give her credit for. So watching the fight,
She has an amazing good submission defense.
Correct. Yeah. Well, and get back up. That's the idea. Get back up.
Yep.
And she did, and she was able to win the fight. And so I was actually I have it recorded. I was one of the very few people that actually did call that fight. So
that's awesome. I thought I nodded towards her, saying that she was going to win on the DC Life. We did pick her. I did say that I thought Ronda had more skill set, and that she would probably retain. Though I wouldn't be surprised if she retained the title, because usually in mixed martial arts, regardless, the fight never stays 100% on the feet unless there's a spectacular knockout quickly. The fight always hits the floor.
A la Conor McGregor,
Yeah. And the second the fight hit the floor, I thought it was over until I saw Holly's strength really come into play. Ronda had no leverage whatsoever.
Bigger, stronger.
And I think when Holly took her down, that's when I knew the fight was over. I didn't know it was gonna be a knockout like that, but I had a feeling it was Holly's night, and what really sealed it was when Holly ducked under and just moved and let Ronda hit herself against the cage.
Well, and we talked about this on air on 610. They talked about what was the turning point in the fight. Where was it that you felt like Holly really had control? And I think you're absolutely right. I think Holly took her down not intending to actually keep her down,
Yeah.
just to show her that I can do this. And when Ronda got up, that look on her face, Ronda was done.
Yeah.
She had lost that fight mentally already.
It was over, and I think I honestly thought it was going to be a 5-round beating. Is what I said. This girl's going to kick her ass for 5 rounds, and just put it on her. And
Well, and she would have if
win the title.
if Ronda got back
unanimously.
up.
Yeah, I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't see her knocking her out. I really didn't. I thought Holly was gonna beat her up, put a beating on her, mess up her face real good. She did, but I thought it was gonna be over a 5-round period. Of
6
time.
month suspension,
Yeah.
plastic surgery,
Broken. I think she broke her jaw. I don't care what they say.
Yeah,
They're not
no,
going to tell you.
I'm right there with
but
you.
the reason is look at her mouth. That's the first sign of a broken jaw. Is when your mouth opens up, your mouthpiece is hanging out of your mouth like that. Those are signs.
Well,
right there.
and when the first pictures we see of her are 2 weeks later, and she's covering her face with like a body pillow,
Yeah.
not a throw pillow, not a cloth, like a body pillow. Something's wrong there.
You don't
know?
go to the press conference. You go straight into surgery. Oh, it's
Right.
plastic surgery.
And then no
She
one
has to
sees you
do-
for
yeah,
2 weeks.
Yeah,
You
come
know?
on.
Yeah.
You know that happened. But yeah, hands down. Honestly, that night I was so nervous with her walking in, but she looked the same that she's looked when she walked in, and I think they even mentioned it on the broadcast. They're like, "Why is she moving around, jumping around like that?" That's Holly. If
Yeah,
you
that's-
go back to her fights at
That's
Isleta
Santa Ana
Casino,
or Isleta,
you
yeah.
know, jumping around the ring
At the convention
you
center,
know.
yeah, exactly.
Even before the events, because when I used to do the media and the .com and stuff like that, I used to go in early. I used to love to be there early all the time, and she would be running circles inside the ring. You know, just moving around the ring, the cage, whatever, all the time. That's what she did.
Yeah.
I don't know if they allow her to do it in the UFC, but locally, that's what she did all the time. She moves like that. She runs. She jumps up and down, and just when her music hit, the what is it? Do you know the song? I forget what the song is that she.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
I don't know what
the
that is.
bagpipes and
The
everything.
bagpipes. You just know what it is when you've heard it, if you've ever heard it.
Right.
And she's been walking out to that forever, so it's interesting and to see, and it was a good feeling. This next weekend we have UFC 195 coming up. What are the chances another New Mexico fighter brings home a title this Saturday?
I'm not
in
that great
Carlos
on
Condit?
betting and giving you percentages, but my pick, Carlos Condit's the new welterweight world champion of the world. I believe he has the skill set and better head movement and defense to stand there, slug it out, and this could rival, that Lawler-McDonald fight, because you think of Warrior, and these two guys embrace, you'd figure they'd both be soldiers if they weren't MMA fighters. These guys are going to go to war. I can't wait for it. I think Carlos is more diverse and could pull off the win, and should pull off the win.
Now, are they going to give him a Carlos Condit day in the sense of a parade and everything else, or was that just something special for Holly?
My fingers are crossed.
I think they would. I don't know that it's going to be to the extent that they did for Holly, and I think that there's a reason behind that. Carlos has been honored here before when he was the champion, billboards on the highway and celebrations and stuff. I think it was special for Holly because not only is she native, but if being a female fighter, it's something unique for the Albuquerque area. So I think that's why the mayor and those folks stepped in, and we had happy or happy Holy Holmes days or
Holly Homecoming.
Holly Homecomings, and that's good. We should do stuff like that. Now, if Carlos wins, it's not as groundbreaking, I guess. For him it is, obviously, and
you've done it before.
Right. But we're
Congratulations.
absolutely gonna honor and celebrate him. And I'm already eating crow because I had predicted we'd have 5 titles here in the state of New Mexico by the end of 2016, and obviously it didn't work out for Cowboy, and that's
or John.
yeah. Well, no, John's gonna have 2 titles by the end.
I'm sorry, John Dotson.
Oh,
John.
gotcha. No, well, I've got I still have us having 4 titles because I think John Jones will have 2 by the end of 2016.
You think I don't think the UFC will let them have dual championships.
I think they, with the money that he's going to be able to generate for them, I think that the bottom line will overweigh some of their concerns. I think that he could hold the heavyweight and light heavyweight title at the same time.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it 100%. However, do you think that he'll have the Roy Jones effect on his body? In the sense of, Roy went up, he won a piece of the heavyweight title, went back down, and he looked horrible against Antonio Tarver, and that's when his downfall really happened.
But I don't think that had anything to do with the weight.
No?
I really don't. I think that,
You think
as we mentioned, styles make fights. And if you look at Antonio Tarver, what did he do after? Not much, to be perfectly honest. I mean,
Got beat up by Bernard Hopkins.
Right. He had some interesting fights with Hopkins, and the gentleman from Jamaica. But, I think that was just one of the, stylistically, Roy just didn't know how to fight Antonio. I don't think that the weight cut was anything. Because, I mean, if you look, he went up in weight, but he fought a guy in John Ruiz that was he really a true champion at heavyweight?
He had one of the pieces.
He did, yeah, and I don't know why. I mean, because that was when the decline of the heavyweight division really kind of started. I don't see him struggling with the weight, honestly. But I mean, I see him having a belt. I see Carlos having a belt. I see Holly having a belt, and possibly him having a second. So 4 belts in 20. Yeah, I predicted 5 because I have my love in Cowboy, but we'll go down to 4 now.
Gotcha. So let's go ahead and move on to the male side of this.
Of the Fighter of the Year that we're talking about?
Yes.
So, outside, we're talking inside of the UFC and Bellator, we're talking about just New Mexico guys, and it comes down to 2 names for me. I'm thinking they're both from FIT. Tim Means and Ray Borg were the 2 biggest names in MMA that we had come out in New Mexico on the male side this year that didn't have a title fight around here.
For me, it's got to be Timmy, and just because we have so much history, that guy's a warrior, just a trooper. Will take a fight on any sort of notice. Will get in there and mix it up no matter what. His fights are always exciting. So for me, it's got to be Dirty Bird.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, he got caught in the Matt Brown fight, but I also say, hey, he's fighter of the year.
Matt Brown's a tough dude.
Yeah, I could make a case. I see where you're making a case for Ray Borg, being that he hasn't lost.
Yeah, he didn't lose this year. That was why I thought of him.
That was a big thing as well. You could say Carlos has probably comeback fighter of the year, being that he blew out his knee and then came back, fought, won. And now
put a whooping on Thiago Alves.
Now he's coming into the title shot here this weekend coming up. And let's go ahead and close this out, and let's talk about UFC 195.
Well, UFC 195, what I saw really, you break down the numbers. Carlos is 3 inches taller.
You guys forgot Fight of the Year, by the way.
Did we?
Oh, wow. Okay, well, real quick, Fight of the Year just...
Adonis Johnson Creed versus pretty Ricky Conlon. I mean, come on, guys.
And that fight, Robbie Lawler and Roy McDonald watched that laughing together remember how bad we beat each other up?
That one was good, too.
Yeah, that was good, too.
Go ahead, let's do that.
Lawler McDonald, Fight of the Year. Probably best fight in, 2 years.
Hands down.
Hands down.
And that's funny because
Rockhold and Weidman was pretty good, too, though. Although it was pretty one-sided.
It was, but it was pretty one-sided because I watched the replay on Fight Pass of the Robbie Lawler fight with McDonald, and I'm like, holy cow. These guys
have that on my DVR, and it's never coming off.
Reminds you, it's like
breaks off of each other.
Yeah.
It took something out of their lives. I don't care what they say.
It's Griffin Bonner.
Yeah.
It's right
worse.
there. Yeah.
It was worse. It was worse because the skill set
because they were just better.
So much higher.
Right.
But honestly, you could see a part of their soul leaving them fighting in that cage that night. And it was kind of scary to see, I was sitting here watching.
You brought up the Rocky reference earlier, so you can't blame me.
Yeah, no. But it is rough. It is, the Fit NHB is rough, and that's it is in the sense of, wow, these guys, and that's the way it felt. It used to feel like that in Jackson's, but now, going back to the topic, since you're throwing me off again.
Sorry.
But... go moving in. So we all agreed that was the Fight of the Year.
Fight of the Year, hands down.
Moving into the new year, UFC 195, you come watch it with me at Uptown Sports Bar and Grill this Saturday. Robbie Lawler versus Carlos Condit. Does Carlos have enough heart?
Oh, yeah, he does. He's shown that before in many fights.
But to take that kind of beating and give that kind of beating back.
I think he really does.
And does Robbie Lawler have it in him to do that again?
Possibly. Who knows what it took out of him. Raw numbers, what I was looking at, though, Carlos 3 inches taller, inch reach advantage, and just in their career right now, Carlos is slightly higher, a couple percent more accurate, and the big thing that stuck out to me, Lawler eats a strike per minute more than Carlos. Carlos has a lot better defense on his striking, so I think that's where it plays too. I think that Carlos slams more, and Robbie eats a lot of shots, and we saw that against Rory. He does eat a lot of shots.
Pick the winner.
Carlos Condit wins. I'm going to go by decision. I don't know. Unless it's a weird Nick Diaz jab, I don't know if Robbie Lawler can get knocked out.
Do you think they're studying that fight? Or is this a totally different fighter from that time?
Totally different fighter. Robbie's totally different. Looking back at new stuff now.
I think they're absolutely studying all of the fights. I mean, if you know anything about the guys at Jackson's, they're the best in the world at what's called a game plan when it comes to, planning against a certain fighter. I don't honestly see it turning into like one of those knockdown, drag out brawls. I think that Carlos's camp is smarter than that. I don't think that it's not that they don't think he can. It's just that it's not the best idea. It's not the best plan. I see Carlos actually taking this fight to the ground. I really, really do. Despite the fact that some of his best strengths are on his feet, I think his length, as you mentioned, not just arms but legs. I think when it goes down to the ground, I think it makes submissions a whole lot more dangerous. And Robbie's got decent submission defense, but it's not something that he's
it's not
world it's not he's not world renowned for it. I've got Carlos by second round sub.
Wow, so that's interesting perspective as well. I think it's going to be a 5-round battle. I think it's going to be more like the Nick Diaz versus Carlos Condit fight, where people are saying that Carlos did point fighting. And just like you said, I think they're smart enough to stay out of those brawls with Nick. I think they're going to be smart enough to stay out of the brawls and win.
It's not that he can't. It's just not the best game
smart.
Plan.
How long more does Carlos have in the sport?
Well, and he knows.
I don't think he has very much longer.
He doesn't need to.
No.
And that's...
No. Financially, I don't think he does. But how much more does he have to give?
2 more years, I would guess.
You're saying 2 more?
2 more years.
So let's say they fight an average 3-4 times, so 8 more fights possibly.
And that's probably a high number, to be honest.
That is
you're probably right. Yeah,
that's 4 to 6.
But again, it's not point fighting, it's winning.
Yeah,
I've never been a huge fan of Mayweather, but I know how good he is. Yeah. But I know how good the guy is. I'm not going to take away from him for going out and doing what he needs to do to win. And Dana's been critical of the Jacksons camp before for stuff like this. They don't go out there to make it exciting. It's not our job to make it exciting. That's your job. You're the promoter.
Yeah.
You make it exciting.
You hype it up. You put everything. You put asses in the seat with your.
You make it exciting. I'll go win. How about that?
But that's where I think he's going to win. I don't think it's going to be the war unless he just decides to trade and just says, hey, you know what?
And I'm not saying that he couldn't win that way. He absolutely could win that way.
Sure.
I just don't think it's the way that they're going to go.
But he also can lose that way.
Right.
A higher percentage chance of him losing that way.
Only reason I don't like the ground theory of James is because it was hard for Hendricks to get Lawler to the ground, and Hendricks got Condit to the ground easily. Condit does have a slightly less, he's not a great wrestler. He may get him, in a flurry if he drops levels, but I don't know if that, I don't specifically see that happening. We'll see what happens. But we're all pretty sure on Carlos, right?
When we record Combat Sports Weekly, you can buy me lunch when it's a second round sub.
Ouch.
Are we betting?
I ain't betting. I am broke right now. James has already put me in one.
Because I owed lunch, wasn't it? What was it for that we bet?
I can't remember the last time we bet you owed lunch.
And I end up always having to take him to Applebee's every single time we bet.
And then we got a co-main event that's also big for out here. Andrei Arlovsky, the comeback, the reigniting of his career. Can this run keep going against Stipe Miocic, who in my opinion has already been the most deserving heavyweight of a title shot from last year?
No, I don't. I think it ends here. I really do. Yeah. I think he goes to sleep first, second round. I really do. Andre Arlovski. I think it's over after this point. I think he's been better lucky than good in his fights.
It's been a good story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That Frank Mir fight was ugly. That Travis Brown fight was a coin toss. They were both knocked out a couple times.
Yeah, both of them. It was whoever landed on whoever the cleanest, and he just got the luckier shot. And that's why I say it's been better lucky than good for him, and I think his time's going to run out here in this fight.
Since I heard about Miocic at Cleveland State as a pitcher with a huge fastball, a guy that was a pitcher with a fastball, a wrestler, and a Golden Ghost boxer, I was like, wow, that's a devastating combination coming in. You have a big right hand, you know it if you can throw like that, the wrestling background and the boxing, and his footwork. You saw what he did against guys like Mark Hunt. He's proving to not just be a big knock-you-out heavyweight, but a very technical, smart one. I think he does win this fight. I again got this one going to decision because I think he plays it a little too safe, but I think he's going to tag up Arlovski.
No, I think Arlovski has a suspect chin, and we've all seen it. So I don't think you can fix the chin. As much. Yeah, his hands are still there, and yeah, absolutely. So I think he'll go down in 2.
And see, I'm going to stick with home. I'm going to stay
Taking
5.
Andre?
I'm going to stay local. Yeah, I really think that Andre. He might surprise some people. Again, it's been a great story, and I don't, as you say, it's over. I don't know that we're over yet. I don't know that he's not going to get a title. I don't think.
Well, they're saying whoever wins here gets the title.
Well, he'll get a shot. I just don't think he can. I don't think he can win it.
Wouldn't that be amazing though? The old school heavyweight champion comes back, does good, goes on the streak, and then wins the title.
Look at where Robbie Lawler is.
Yeah.
How long did he disappear for?
Yeah.
Could you imagine an Arlovski-Verdum 2016 heavyweight title fight? Still scratching my head when I watch Verdum fight. I'm like, who is this guy?
And Jones will beat either one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
If they let him.
But I don't think he's gonna stay at 205 either. I think there's a reason why you're seeing.
Oh, he's gonna walk through Cormier.
I think there's a reason why you're seeing him putting up.
I think he walks through Cormier and then moves up. Probably lets go of the 205 belt, saying, "Hey, I've already wiped this division. I've beat everybody here already. Literally everybody."
And I think that's his thinking. I think that's why he's lifting the way he.
They let Silva do it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they let Jones?
It was a little different. It was different time, different space,
era,
different individual.
He is so crazy marketable that the money that they could make by letting him do it, I think that they'd have to take a real hard look.
I also think that they're afraid because of Jones' checkered past, and being that I think he messes up one more time, he's gone.
Oh yeah, I think that's absolutely the situation, but I think he's very cognizant of that.
We'd hope so because this is already two times,
2 car accidents,
some issues,
2 car accidents and stuff. And granted, we've all made mistakes, but what I'm saying is he reminds me of the self-destruction of Mike Tyson when Mike Tyson was king and untouchable.
Well, he's not biting anybody. We're not there yet.
No. But I'm saying this young champion, all the money in the world, all the fame, all the fortune. He knows he's the baddest man in the planet. He has to know that. He has to, And I think Mike Tyson knew in the 80s. Yeah. But you're seeing it. You're seeing it. I'm hoping he has some kind of recovery where he can. Well, but he's his biggest opponent.
And I don't think he's had that life-altering event that Tyson did. When you make that comparison, the death of Cus D'Amato was... where Tyson really just... I mean, he basically lost his dad. Yeah. His dad, his best friend, his confidant, his trainer. I mean, anybody that was important to him was Cus D'Amato. And when...
Snakes came in and took him over.
Right.
And Cus protected him from all that.
Right. When Cus passed away, that was the end of Tyson. I don't know that John has had that type of, life-altering event. I think he's going to be okay.
I'm excited to see him back in the cage. I want to see if any of this has any kind of wear or tear on him. I think
he's going to be better.
I think he's going to blow through whoever they put in front of him first time out. I really, really do. His biggest opponent is the guy looking in the mirror.
Yeah, of course.
And it's going to be tough. Micah, real quick, let's go ahead and break down the rest of the card, and then we'll close out the show.
Okay, on the pay-per-view card, underrated fight, Albert Tumenov, who's a Russian boxer, taking on Lorenz Larkin, the Monsoon. We knew him from Strikeforce, a lot of knockouts. Kickboxer, that's a fun fight. Grappling, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, genius. Brian Ortega, who came off a great submission of Thiago Tavares, is taking on the wild and crazy Diego Brandao. You got Abel Trujillo looking to use his power wrestling against Tony Sims. Mayday Michael McDonald is back, taking on Masanori Kanahari from Japan. Big fight for Kanahari if he can take down a top tenor like McDonald. Kyle Noak from the Jackson Wink camp is back in action. This was supposed to be a big main card fight against Kelvin Gastelum. Gastelum is injured, and Alex Morneau, who recently with a submission captured the Legacy welterweight title, getting his call up. Nina Arsnoff and tough alum Justine Kish, they're going to be dueling it out on the prelims. Also, you got former XFC lightweight champion Scott Holtzman against Drew Dober, who's looking to bounce back from a loss to Efren Escudero. The best prelim fight in the history of Fight Pass is happening. Dustin Poirier and Joseph Duffy. They couldn't fight in Ireland. That's been rebooked to Fight Pass. That's a big treat. Former Bellator champion and UFC title challenger Joe Soto taking on Michinori Tanaka, who only has one win in an exciting one loss, which came in an exciting split decision on Fight Pass. And Sheldon Westcott, who is out here in New Mexico at Jackson's Wing for his camp in the welterweight division, is going to meet Edgar Garcia. That kicks our night off on Fight Pass.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of the DC Life. We shoot live every week inside the Fight Shop New Mexico, and we are also put up at cageminds.com. James Lindenmuth from 610, thank you for coming on and being a part of our roundtable for the 2015 Fighters of the Year, and look back and touch and talk. And you got a show coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, you'll start hearing me more on 610. That'll be released after the first of the year, but always on Thursdays at 5:15.
Awesome. 610, the sports animal here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You can find Michael Frankel at cageminds.com, and of course Sal Mora, the DC Life, and also at the Fight Shop New Mexico. UFC 195 viewing party at Uptown Sports Bar and Grill. Come out. Pay-per-view starts.
You can get Micah's autograph if you come out.
Yes. Actually, we're going to have Carlos Condit autograph. We're going to have a couple T-shirts we're going to be giving away.
You get that one too.
So that happens, but I know that's not the biggest deal. Micah's autograph is the most important. We'll see you next week in the new year. Be